All right, we should be live. Hello, everybody. I'm going to take these out while I do a little intro here. What's going on? I hope everyone's having a blessed day today. Oh, shoot. Let me do the face cam. Let me just pretend that didn't happen. All right. Hello, everyone. Hope we are all having a great day. We are live right now. Yeah, welcome to the second episode of Deported Archives. Today, we're going to be talking about philosophy, specifically Stoicism. This is the first philosophy stream, right? I'm gonna do a lot of kinds of stream. I have like 7 different kinds planned. Theology, philosophy, psychology, history, and I think there's one more. Yeah, writing. But yeah, let's get straight into it. I'm gonna pull up the slides. Here we go. Uh, yeah, let's get straight into it. Let me see if I can zoom. I was able to zoom in yesterday. All right. Yeah, zoom in. All right, hold on. Get rid of that. All right. All right, yeah. Welcome to Philosophy, Episode 1, Stoicism. This is the philosophy, like philosophical concept that I am the most familiar with. And yeah, I've got a lot to say about it. There are great things about it. There are some iffy things about it. Yeah, let's get into it. I prepared these slides. So, what is Stoicism? I got all this off of Google. What is Stoicism? Stoicism is an ancient Greek and Roman philosophy focused on developing personal virtue, resilience, and wisdom to live a good life. The most important Stoic philosophers span the early Greek founders and later Roman thinkers who developed and popularized the philosophy. So yeah, philosophy actually means the love of wisdom, right? So it's going to be the combination of the words philo and sophia, and sophia means wisdom, and philo means love of some kind. Yeah, that's might not be a great explanation, but yeah, the um Stoicism was founded in Greece with philosophers like Plato, and all of them, and then it was later developed more thoroughly in Rome, ancient Rome. By people like Marcus Aurelius and all of them, which we're about to get into. Yeah, founders of Stoicism, the Greek period, ancient Greece. Zeno of Citium, the originator of Stoicism, about the 3rd century before Christ. Actually, I'm going to change that because BC. Yeah, sue me. I love Jesus, so yeah. Yeah, originator of Stoicism, third century. All right. Uh, the originator, yeah, Zeno. I When I did my own research a long time ago, it just called him Zeno, but now we get to know he's from Citium or Kitium, one of the two. I'm not an expert on this guy personally, but yeah, the originator of Stoicism, about 3rd century BC. He taught in Athens and established the core idea: live in accordance with nature and reason. Okay. Uh, Cleanthes, Zeno's successor, known for emphasizing discipline and devotion to Stoic ethics, wrote the famous hymn to Zeus. Okay, and then Chrysippus. Also type in chat. I know there's no one here, but type in chat if we should do a mythology stream because that would be sick. I'm gonna talk about mythologies of different cultures and like history, but yeah. Anyways, Chrysippus the Great. Also, my stomach's rumbling really loud. If that picks up on the mic, I don't know. I haven't eaten in 2 days because I'm fasting right now. But yeah, the great system builder of Stoicism, he developed its logic, physics, and ethics so thoroughly that Stoicism rests heavily on his work. Yeah, so basically, according to my understanding, ancient Greece is like the beginning of civilization, pretty much. Like there was Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley civilization that we're gonna learn about in history class. But yeah, ancient Greece is really like one of the first major empires in civilization. So we're really starting to get to because we start learning about live in accordance with nature and reason, and you know develop discipline and devotion, and these are all good things that people should strive for, obviously. But this was the beginning of civilization. Like before this, people were just focused on survival. You understand? Like there weren't conveniences like we have today. So yeah, let's keep going. So these people were the first to go like, discipline's a good thing. Being uncomfortable can be a good thing, right? And it's actually a virtue. You should go out of your way to be uncomfortable. Would have been foreign at the time, right? Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, Roman sorry, I'm tweaking. Roman Stoicism. Most influential writings survive here. Yeah. So Seneca, a statesman and playwright. You know, everyone's heard of Seneca. Seneca. Yeah, a statesman and playwright. His letters and essays focus on practical ethics, how to deal with anger, wealth, and adversity. Yeah. So how to yeah, and then Epic Epictetus. I don't know who this is. And I did make these slides, but I do not know. I must have like breezed over it pretty quickly. Most of this is copy and pasted from Google or ChatGPT or whatever. Emphasized inner freedom and control over one's reactions. His teachings, recorded by students, are among the clearest introductions to Stoicism. Okay, and then obviously Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor whose Meditations is a personal journal applying Stoicism to leadership and mortality and duty. Yo, Marcus Aurelius, I think is, I'd say like top five most interesting historical figures, at least to me. Um, Obviously, number one is Jesus, and then there are other biblical figures. But Marcus Aurelius is really interesting to me because he was a Roman Empire who had everything he could ever want at the time, and he still made it his focus to be a good person, right? I always admire people who try their best to like follow virtue and actually do good for the world and put other people's needs above their own, more than when they have everything, you know, when they're some of the most powerful people in the world. You never see it nowadays. You don't, very rarely, right? All right, let's keep going. All right, Stoicism, become undefeatable. This is a video by, oh, I love this channel, but I can't remember their name. Aperture over here. Yeah, great channel. I've looked at a lot of their stuff. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. We zoom in on this. We suffer more in imagination than
in the city of Cyprus in 300 BC, there lived a very...
I'm gonna restart this. Yeah, I know, I'm stupid. I forgot to put the earbuds in. All right, earbuds are going in. All right, let's get straight into this. We suffer more in the imagination than in reality. Seneca, yeah.
In the city of Cyprus in 300 BC, there lived a very wealthy trader called Zeno. While on a voyage from Phoenicia to Piraeus, his boat sank along with all of his cargo. Because of that single event, an event that was entirely out of Zeno's or anyone's control, this very wealthy man suddenly became poor in an instant. Imagine you were Zeno. How would you react to your entire life's work getting flushed down the drain by the sheer force of nature? What is the proper reaction? Would you be angry, sad? Would you feel life has cheated you? For most of us, these would all be normal reactions, but not for Zeno, the father of Stoicism. One small change lasts an eternity.
This video is really well made. Yeah. Yeah, what would be my reaction? I don't know. I obviously like hate the world. Probably blame things outside of my. I mean, if I'm just being honest, I'm not saying this is what you should do or what you should obviously aspire to do when hard things happen in your life. You shouldn't aspire to you know, be angry at the world and just, yeah, because you lose everything. That shouldn't be what you aspire to do. But obviously, if I'm being honest with myself, yeah, that's probably what would happen. I'd probably be mad. I'd probably blame God. I've done that before. When things don't go my way, yeah, blame other people, blame yourself. Obviously, you can't really blame other people for a storm, but yeah, let's keep going.
Small reframing of your mindset can cascade into larger and more impactful changes later down the line. The core of Stoicism is the very definition of acceptance and indifference.
Yeah.
After reading the works of Socrates and other great philosophers, Zeno created and taught Stoicism. According to Zeno, although we don't have much control over what happens to us, we do have control of how it affects us, and we must use this control to great effect. Rather than crying over spilled milk, or in this case, drowned goods, Zeno focused on maintaining his composure over the situation, remaining calm
once it's
neutral,
gone, there's nothing you can do.
Despite his predicament. Today, people inadvertently view Stoics as people who cannot be broken, people who don't often linger to the emotional extremes, going through things like fits of rage or bouts of anxiety. But the original idea behind Stoicism was much more than that. Rather than just a way to describe people who are unemotional, Stoicism was a way to view, describe, and understand the world. It was a way of life, and that way of life has lasted for centuries. Stoic philosophy can be applied to situations today the same way it was applied thousands of years ago, and its benefits are just as impactful. Stoicism allows us to process these negative emotions from negative experiences, and turn them into the thoughts that give us a unique perspective of the world.
It's really interesting. Jesus talks about this too in the Gospels. We suffer more in the mind than we do in reality, right? Jesus says, "Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worries for itself." You cannot add 1 minute nor subtract 1 minute from your life by worrying. And it's the same thing with Stoicism. It's like there's there's no point. Everything that we perceive about reality is internal. So back to yesterday's stream, right? Back to yesterday's stream in psychology with Iroh. You guys have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, maybe. Iroh is perfectly content drinking a glass of tea, right? That's all he needs is his tea. Something not that hard to achieve, right? There are people in the show, Ozai, for example, who is not content when he has the most powerful nation in the world, to the extent that he needs to go and take more. He wants to take the entire world. Once he took the entire world, he still wouldn't have been happy. But let's say one guy is perfectly content with a glass of tea, and the other guy wants the entire world. But on the inside, it's the exact same. Does that make sense or not? Hold on. I feel like I can explain this a bit better. It's okay. Things are neither good or bad. It's our perception of things that make them good or bad, and our priorities. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah. Let's keep going. Sorry, and if I don't make any sense, I do apologize. I'm running on fumes right now. Yeah. After this stream, I am going to break my fast, but this has been a good experience. All right, let's keep going.
Perspective is everything, and everyone in the world has different experiences and thus different perspectives on things. Since the Stoics gathered, discussed, and taught philosophy in a public place, their general philosophy was widely known. They believed that the Stoic principles could greatly benefit anyone and everyone, and so it didn't make sense for them to hide that knowledge behind the four walls of a school or of the palace courtyards. As a result, everyone from slave to emperor could learn and become a Stoic. And they did. Some of the world's most notable Stoics include Epictetus, which translates to acquired, as he was once owned as a slave, Seneca, who was a well-renowned statesman, and Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most powerful men to have ever lived. The early Stoics practiced what they preached, avoiding all forms of segregation and leading the fight against inequality. They even invented the word cosmopolitan, which literally means citizen of the world. When people hear that word now, we think of cities like New York, Toronto, Dubai, and London because of how diverse they are. This was the type of unity and togetherness that the Stoics preached. Even at a time when it wasn't popular, women were allowed to freely learn about Stoicism and become Stoics themselves. So why do so many people adopt Stoicism as a way of life?
In a world Stoicism is a way. So here's the thing. Here's what I don't wrap my head around Stoicism. Okay. Stoicism is a non-confrontational way to improve your life. You understand? So it's really hard to base your life around something that is non-confrontational, that it's inactive, right? Because the whole idea of Stoicism is become inactive, right? Don't let things affect you, right? So it's not giving into something, right? It's the difference between willpower and discipline. Discipline is doing something that you don't want to do because you know it'll yield a reward, right? And um willpower is not doing something that you don't want to do because that will yield a reward, right? It's the difference between working out and dieting, right? If you work out to get your dream body, you're doing something to get it. When you are dieting, you're not eating specific foods so that you look a certain way, right? Um, yeah. So it's really hard, at least for me, in my experience. It's really hard for me to not do something as opposed to do something. And I think that's human nature, right? And that's why we get principles, we get ideas like replacing, like with addicts, right? When you don't want to do something, when you're trying to uh, recover from an addiction, you try to replace the thing. You don't just try to cut it off, right? Because when you cut it off, you have free time, so you're going to go back to it. But if you replace it with something good or something else, right? You're not bored, so you don't have time to do it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But yeah, stoicism. The whole idea of stoicism is not letting things affect you. So it's hard to build your life around that. That's why I kind of think it's silly when people. It's not silly to call yourself a stoic, I guess, but like to base your whole life around stoicism like it's a religion, because it's not, right? Um, it's not. Stoicism. It's not doing. There are great principles within stoicism, but it doesn't give you something to do. Does that make sense? It's not like a religion in that sense. It's not like, yeah, Stoicism can't replace Jesus, or yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Turns of events, our emotions can tend to get in the way of things.
Obviously,
reality,
nothing can replace.
We don't
Jesus.
really get sad because bad things happen to us. We get sad because unexpected bad things happen to us.
Yeah,
Rain
exactly.
is a good thing. It helps to water our plants, provides water for livestock, and keeps the temperature cool and humid. But the truth is, when that dark cloud catches you outside without an umbrella, it's never a good experience.
Yeah.
So why don't we start crying once it starts to rain? It's because although the situation is bad, we've learned to expect rain. It's something that is unavoidable. We can't control the weather. Although it sucks, the rain passes and the light returns. Stoicism teaches us that in the same way, we should expect that everything bad that can happen will happen. Picture the worst outcome, and be content knowing it could happen.
Yeah.
One of the Stoic exercises is known as voluntary discomfort, an exercise aimed at increasing feelings of gratitude. Sleep on the floor of your kitchen, taking cold.
Bhutan is the happiest country in the world. I'm not sure how you measure that. I'm not sure if it's true. Right? And they meditate on death. The people in the country, predominantly Buddhist. I'm not a huge fan of Buddhism. There, obviously, like everything, there are good things that you can learn from it, but I think it's, you know, as a Christian, someone who knows Jesus, it's uh, mostly a force for evil, as far as leading people away from Christ. But yeah, they meditate. They think about dying. They think about the fact that they're going to die multiple times a day, and that makes them live life knowing that they're going to die, right? Um, and that's the other thing. So there's two sides to this, right? There's two sides to this because as a Christian, I believe that I have eternal life through Jesus, right? So it's like, oh, if I'm never going to die, why do anything, right? But I have a calling that Jesus has given to me, and I have things to do while I'm on this earth that Jesus has given to me, right? Through his word and through his word. Like, callings and duties. That's the word. Duties and responsibilities. And yeah. Yeah. So what he's talking about here is accepting and expecting the worst thing to happen, but being okay with that, right? And that's really deep. That's really deep. I don't know if that's necessarily the best. There's three levels to this, right? There's three levels to a lot of things. There's three levels to this. The first level you have is I am not going to think about the worst case scenario at all. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to live a good life, merry go lucky, that, right? The butterfly sunshine. And then when the slightest bad thing happens, you crumble. Your mental fortitude crashes, right? Then you have the next level to this, which is, okay, I accept the worst thing's going to happen, but this makes you paranoid and it makes you miserable and it makes you depressed because the worst thing's always going to happen, right? And then the last stage to that is the worst thing is going to happen. I've accepted that it's going to happen, but I'm okay with that. And I am at peace with that. And if that happens, so be it, right? It's really hard to get there. I'd argue without Jesus, you can't get there. Not really, right? But the thing about Jesus is he gives you hope, right? That's the thing about because yeah, I could die. I'm going to die. Everyone watching the stream is going to die. Everyone watching this video is going to die. But I have hope at the end of that. I have hope for what's going to happen after that, right? Let's keep going. But obviously, Stoicism is a bit different. Stoicism is just accepting bad things are going to happen.
Showers when you normally take hot ones. Eat nothing but potatoes for a few days. Things like this. This exercise helps you to understand that no matter how hard it gets, you'll still survive and potentially thrive if your mindset is right.
It's the idea of intentionally making yourself uncomfortable with fasting. What I've been doing the past few. I'm not trying to flex, by the way. The Bible, don't tell people you're fasting, but I'm not trying to flex. Right? I've really been struggling during this. I'm not better than a lot of people, but this is I'm just drawing a blank. Yeah, this is like the first idea of like making yourself uncomfortable, right? Because if you're never uncomfortable, you don't appreciate comfort, right? Let's keep going.
By being able to withstand these uncomfortable situations, we indirectly prepare our mental for future misfortunes. Yeah. With the current state of the world where advertisements are constantly being shoved down our throats, we're made to believe that if we don't have the next best thing, look a certain way, or make a certain amount of money, that we will never be happy.
Yeah.
This message is more important now than ever.
Yeah.
We enter the world
because you don't need these things to be happy.
We grow up being taught things at home, in school, and by observing the world for ourselves. Mm-hmm. The thing is, a lot of times, all three of these sources of knowledge teach us in different ways. The question is, do we need to internalize all of this knowledge? If we do, we could unknowingly be setting unrealistic expectations for our lives, leaving us ultimately disappointed and unsatisfied in the end. Yeah. That's no way to live. We should instead focus on improving ourselves, for ourselves. We should do things for ourselves and only for that reason. Attaching any external hope or secondary attachments to the actions we take.
This is the thing. I don't know if they're going to talk about this, but this is the thing. Stoicism is really self-centered. And I think that's its biggest flaw. Is it doesn't acknowledge God, which most people don't. Most people don't. And it doesn't acknowledge other people. I think it's a better message to communicate. Do what's best for the world despite yourself. Right? Which was Jesus' message. So this is where the flaws, I think, start coming in. Because like he said, you do everything for yourself. What kind of a way to live is that? Who wants to make the world a better place with your energy, right? And don't focus on the focus should be as little on you as possible, right? The focus should be on other people and God and the world before you get to yourself, before you start looking at yourself, right? And obviously, self-improvement, stoicism, all these things, they're good to a degree, right? But you should be focusing on how you can provide for the people around you and how you can help the people around you more than how can you improve yourself even. So it's priorities. Let's keep going.
Almost always lead to disappointment. Most of the time, we end up trying to fulfill that emptiness with external things, blowing all your money on a fancy car.
So this I agree.
House,
this I agree.
Even starting a family. Sometimes we do all of these things for their external value and not their internal value. But Stoicism teaches that if you approach life this way, you place your happiness in the hands of external forces. Forces that can always fail. Cars almost always break down. Natural disasters wipe away entire cities, and divorce rates climb higher and higher each year. But even the free things in life come at a cost. The cost of space, both physical and mental. As Seneca once wrote, learning to live with less will create space in your life for the things that truly matter to you.
Ooh, that's good.
Instead, we must place our happiness on our intrinsic value as humans and on nothing we have or can physically acquire. We must choose to do our best to keep a cool head, regardless of what life throws at us. Because regardless of what it is we want, at the end of the day, we don't have any control over the majority of things that happen to us, but we do have all the control over how we react to those things. That is the dichotomy of control, the most important principle in Stoic philosophy. Stoics teach that we must learn to separate what we control from what we cannot control. We need to determine our value not from things we can't control.
The only thing we can control is ourselves. I do agree.
Striving towards goals is a good trait, but breaking down when those things don't go your way is, in a Stoic's point of view, useless. Making YouTube videos is, well, a lot easier than being a Roman emperor, but it can still prove to be challenging sometimes. First, you must form your idea, which takes forever. Then research that idea, scrap it because it sucks, start over, script the video, create the video, edit it, make the title, thumbnail, and everything else before you hit upload. Everything up until the point where you click upload is all up to you. However, once you click that upload button, the power shifts to the YouTube algorithm. Still, a lot of people judge the success of their YouTube channel or Instagram account based on how many views and subscribers or followers they have, metrics of which, for the most part, are beyond your control.
This is big.
Stoics teach that instead, you should judge the success of your work based on the amount of effort you put in, and not on the outcome of your external hopes. Trust the process. Think about a person who has been working hard at their job for the past 6 months. He now feels he deserves a promotion, and so he walks up to his boss with his performance report. The boss says thanks, doesn't grant him the promotion, and he goes home thinking he must suck at his job. He doesn't consider that the boss might have simply woken up angry, someone else might have been better qualified at the time, or maybe the company was just losing money and couldn't afford it. He doesn't know the reason, but he's still upset. If he simply placed his value on the quality of the performance report he turned in, kept doing what he was doing to earn the promotion he wanted, he could have been much happier overall. With the right perspective, his goal wouldn't have been diminished, but just postponed. It's this reframing of your mindset that is crucial. A true Stoic does not view their successes based on the financial gain of their ventures, but is comforted by the fact that they can live a comfortable life without all the things money can buy.
What was that it?
These are the 4 main virtues of Stoicism.
Wisdom, we got this.
Courage, temperance.
Should I write these? I'm gonna write these down. Hold on, let me go back.
Are the 4 main virtues of...
Alright, 4 main virtues of Stoicism. So this is gonna be like yesterday's video. Alright. Okay, I have heard these before, but I'm just gonna write these down and then discuss each one of them as he explains it. Alright, wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. I can see the caption. Okay. Wisdom, courage. Alright, courage probably relates to other people. And so, see, like, all of these things are good for other people. You understand? What you can do for other people. It's just, Stoicism is really self-centered. And I don't love that. I'm going to be honest. I don't love that. But, yeah. And maybe he'll explain it better. Maybe he'll explain that it's not. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not a Stoic expert. by any means. All right, that's going to be courage, temperance. No, sorry, wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. All right.
Stoicism. Wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Wisdom is being able to separate between what is internal and what is external, and the ability to choose our reaction to the things that happen to us. As Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and that space is our power to choose our response. Courage. 2 words. Persist and resist. Temperance, or moderation, is what I just did there, doing more with less, saying more with fewer words. While Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are fighting at the top of the Forbes list, Stoics believe that the limit of wealth should simply be having what is essential, and then having what is enough. Justice is the most important of all the virtues. It instructs that no one should do harm to another because we were all born for each other.
This is good. I love this message. I love this message. Justice, yeah.
Nelson Mandela was one of the most famous African leaders in the world. While he was fighting against apartheid, he got sentenced to life imprisonment, where he stayed for 27 years before finally being released. When he was released from prison, he was elected president of South Africa, and thus, many people thought he was going to brutally punish all the people that had anything to do with apartheid or his imprisonment. But of course, he did not.
Exactly.
Throughout his time in prison, Mandela read the works of Marcus Aurelius and learned many of the core values of Stoicism, all of which he practiced throughout his life. Instead of calling for the heads of the wrongdoers, Nelson Mandela urged his people to instead seek the opposite, to relax and rebuild. He stressed that the past was now beyond their control, and that the only thing they could do was find a way to move forward and build a better nation. This is the way of the Stoic. In modern-day medicine, Stoicism is at the core of procedures like rational emotive behavioral therapy and logotherapy. REBT helps patients to identify negative thought patterns that might be causing emotional and behavioral issues. It allows you to challenge the reasoning behind all these negative thoughts with logic, and when you realize that many of them are unfounded, you can then replace them with more productive and healthier beliefs. Logotherapy, on the other hand, is based on the Stoic principle that humans are driven by purpose. Even in the darkest of situations, we can fill our lives with meaning and happiness by simply finding out what that purpose is. As many of us know, though, this is easier said than done. It's a process, much like everything else. We have to rewire the way we think, out with the old, in with the new. To fix our problems with happiness, we must practice self-worth. By redirecting our definition of value to the things that we can control, we can stop getting fixated on the things we cannot control. And overall, we can lead a much happier and more fulfilling life. Stoicism helps us steer through past and present storms into calmer and more peaceful waters.
And the only thing you control is yourself, man. The only thing you can control is yourself. As a Christian, that's still the only thing you can control. And I still do believe in a degree of accountability and responsibility for yourself. Yeah, you can control yourself. You can. But that's the only thing you can control. You can't control God. You can't control things around you that happen, right? You can't control other people. Let's keep watching.
We all drown. We can take peace in the fact that we lived a good life, albeit not as long as we had hoped. Because remember, everything has an end.
Yep, except for God. Absolutely. Great way to look at the world. Money's very fleeting. All these things that people, it's good to work out. It's good to take care of your health, but you're going to die, right? It's all going to fade away eventually. So, as a Christian, I'd say invest in things that aren't going to fade away, and your relationship with God and spreading the gospel and all these things. But yeah, all right. Next video. It's called "How to Ruin Your Stoic Guide to Destroying Your Life." How to ruin your life according to a Stoic. Yeah. So this is. Hold on. This is also a really good channel that I like. Unsolicited advice.
How would we take
unsolicited advice? The Stoic Guide to Destroying Your Life. Yeah. I really want to get something to eat, but this is a 20-minute long video. All right, I'll be fine. Then I can, let's just watch, man, because I'm not gonna be able to focus while you. All right, let's watch.
Someone who.
Oh, Not okay.
happy, fulfilled, and at peace, and turn them into a miserable, anxious husk. Stoicism is perhaps the most popular school of philosophy in the world today. All across
I'd
the
say so,
internet,
too.
there are thousands of online gurus giving their interpretations of the great Stoic thinkers. If we follow their teachings, Stoic philosophers promise that we will be more resilient, more virtuous, and above all, happier. But what if we wanted to do the opposite? What if we wanted to use the teachings of Stoicism to rob any semblance of happiness from our lives, leaving us an empty shell of our former selves? It's certainly a challenge, but one I undertake willingly in this video. Get ready to learn the ultimate mindset for misery, how to make yourself a social pariah, and much, much more. But without further ado, let's get started. 1. Ignorance is not bliss. A pillar of Stoic thought is that their philosophy is supremely rational. According to many of them, Stoicism simply follows from a proper acknowledgement of how the world is. If we're going to make our lives as miserable as possible, it's important that we understand this worldview so that we can ignore and reject it. According to the Stoics, the world has two significant...
So what he's doing is he's living the worst life possible according to the Stoics. Okay, and Stoicism. Okay. I'm probably not gonna have many thoughts on this. I'm probably gonna agree with most of what he says. So let's just watch and chill. Also, I don't think I have a lot of brain power in me. But let's keep going.
Things that are inside are direct control, and things that are outside are direct control. The first category contains our thoughts and actions, whereas the second one contains literally everything else in the world. Anything from the actions of our best friends to the weather is placed firmly in the box of stuff we can't directly change. Epictetus thought that this was perhaps the most important distinction in Stoicism, and that almost everything else was entailed by this simple recognition. He said that once we realize we can't control anything apart from our thoughts and our actions, then we could focus entirely on those and become much more relaxed about the rest of the world. After all, any external change we can bring about only happens through our behavior, so it makes sense that our efforts would be concentrated here. So, if we want to destroy our lives, then the path we must take is actually rather simple. We ought to expend our mental energy only on things that are outside of our control. We must contort our minds and torture ourselves over things that we know we cannot change. We should devote an awful lot of time to regretting the past, since we definitely can't affect that. And when we do dwell in the present, we ought to stress about everything that is beyond us. We should think about all the different ways our life could suddenly fall apart.
I mean, we already basically
financial
do
crisis
this.
in 2
I
weeks,
think.
or another
I think what the irony of this video is going to be. I could be wrong, but I mean, and obviously he's taking it to an extreme, but most people live like this. Like most people live what he's going to be talking about in this video. I do. Yeah. Like I get really I'm a nostalgia junkie, bro. Like I get really nostalgic about the past, and like a bunch of stuff. So I think about the past a lot. I know I should be more present, and and I worry about stuff a lot too. So yeah, I'm not saying it's good. Again, I think I believe what Jesus said about worrying, right? But yeah, it's just if I'm just being honest, I think most people are going to fall into this box. I think again I could be wrong by the end of the video, but I think that's going to be the irony of the video. I think that's what his message is going to be. I'm making a prediction right now.
Pandemic or a nuclear war. We should never miss the opportunity.
Hey, but TikTok, on the realest note though, TikTok has me thinking that the world is going to end like every week, bro. It's actually like annoying at this point. It's I mean, there's always stuff, dude. There's always stuff. And if you're online too much, this is why I've been online less recently. If you're online too much, you're constantly being told the world is gonna end and crap, right? I mean, there's great entertainment online. There's great, there are great things to do. There's great social interaction that you can have online. But man, the things about the hantavirus, the boat, politics, all this stuff, man. It's anyways, yeah, let's keep going. We worry too much as people, I think.
Our anxieties about events totally beyond our power. On the flip side, when it comes to our thoughts and actions, we should do the exact opposite. The last thing we want to do is take responsibility for our decisions. Otherwise, we might get the idea that our lives could improve and start accumulating dangerous granules of hope. Such things could eventually form a lifeline to
Yes,
pull us
this
out
is
of our
so
miserable
real
state.
though.
And we can't have
This
that.
is so
So we
real
must
though.
make
Hold
sure that we
on.
never give a moment's thought to our own.
This is so real though. People think that they can't fix their life. This is something. Yeah, this annoys me actually about people. This is not something like I'm really hard on myself. Like on one hand, you can look at it like I'm really hard on myself because I'm always trying to like work on things and I always blame myself for everything. But on the other hand, it's people really have too little responsibility. I feel like they don't understand that they can fix their life. Like if they just work a little harder on certain areas and apply like a little more willpower and discipline in certain areas of their life. Yeah, let's keep going.
Mind and our own behavior. We must pin everything on other people. Our fingers should become tired from singling out the world or our parents or God as the author of our suffering, rather than even entertain the thought that the first step to a better life might lie with ourselves. Reflection should be the enemy, and blame shall be the name.
But the
of
hard
the
thing about this
Even
is
better, we should get the two Stoic categories confused entirely. We should trick ourselves into thinking that if we just tried hard enough, then we could change the behavior of other people. Likewise, we should start believing that our minds are entirely out of our hands. We must think that we have no capacity to control our desires and act on every passing whim that flits through our consciousness. We could take this one step further and believe that other people have total control over our emotional state. How could we possibly be happy we will cry out into the night when you've seen how badly they treat me? And this should be easy enough. After all, it's a lot less work than trying to change our own behavior or slowly alter our thoughts through self-reflection and endless, dizzying practice. It is a worldview that requires we do nothing at all. It reassures us that we are at the mercy of outside forces, a leaf blowing through a hurricane with no power to alter its course. In such a situation, there is nothing to do except panic about which direction the wind will take us next.
Sorry,
And the wonderful thing is, the anti-Stoic worldview does in some ways really reflect reality. Our lives are deeply affected by numerous factors outside of our immediate control. But we should go one step further and tell ourselves that this truly is all the universe consists of, and that ultimately our own thoughts and actions are insignificant to our long-term well-being.
Does anyone
Then
else
we can
really like the way
complain
he
about all
talks?
the things we can't
Like his
change,
accent?
rather than focus on the one thing we can. And it goes without saying that we should on no account follow the Stoic advice. If we concentrated on the factors within our control, we might begin to slowly chip away at our despair. And this is hardly conducive to our goal. For our purposes, it is much better to shout at the sky to stop raining, rather than to get an umbrella. But of course, this alone will not seal our fate. There is still plenty that the Stoics can teach us about cultivating misery. We still might accidentally stumble across information that could improve our lives. Luckily, our next point will tell us just how to react to this. If you want to help me make more videos like this, then consider subscribing to either my email list or my Patreon.
Drop a sub on this channel. He's really good.
Action and actionless thought. The Stoic thinker, Seneca, used to say that the key to a good life was twofold. First, you need to know what the right thing to do is. And then, and this is crucial, you need to do it. Epictetus used to admonish many of the most educated men in the Roman Empire because despite the fact they had access to almost unlimited knowledge, they never bothered to apply it. And so it was like they'd never learnt it at all. They may as well have spent all that time at the pub.
This is like people who like, you know, their entire TikTok feed. This used to be me. How their entire TikTok feed is like workouts and diets and, you know, improving your life stuff. Like, but you just don't apply it because you think that you need to learn more to get started, but you really don't. You know, or you just make an excuse to not start, right? Even though you know everything you need to know, and you just have to jump in at the end of the day and take a risk and, like, you know, commit yourself.
Stoics, philosophy was not something you merely learnt, but something that you practiced constantly. So, if we are to properly guard our sadness, we need to make sure that we do one of two things: act without thinking, or think without acting. The first of these two paths is the easiest, and as a result, the one that I recommend. This involves just giving in to whatever our basest impulses tell us to do. If they tell us we should cheat on our partner, or hit someone that insulted us, or spend every day blackout drunk watching reruns of children's television, then we should do it. At no point should we give a moment's thought to the long-term consequences of our actions. For that matter, why should we even care about the short-term ones? Instead of trying to reconcile a dispute with a friend, why not just never talk to them again? Instead of reflecting on what might fulfill us over the course of our whole lives, let's consider only the next second. If you are halfway through a project and the urge to persevere has left you, then by all means, just give up. Miss deadlines, ignore your loved ones, and spend your days in a stupor of drinking and hangovers. Whatever can dull the mind, we should take to with gusto. After all, thinking might lead to reflection, and reflection is the enemy of despair. If we truly commit to this, then we should end up in prison before long. Maybe we lost our temper and punched someone. Maybe we stole a TV. Maybe we drove drunk through the streets of London.
If you made decisions and didn't think about the future at all, you'd be dead pretty quick. I feel like if we go to the most extreme possibility of this mental framework, you die pretty quick. I feel like you'd hit the wrong dude and he'd shoot you. Like, you know, I just think so. Yeah. Like, I know a lot of people are like this, but I don't think we've had very few people who think like this to the absolute extreme. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna act on my impulses 100% of the time. I don't think that there are people who act like this to the most extreme extent, right? Or like I think that there have been very few, or there are very few people. Yeah.
Against the wind.
Because they
Whatever
die.
it is, we are sure to have thrown our lives away. And once we continue these patterns of behavior in prison, we will guarantee there is no hope for our rehabilitation. Of course, if we're more intellectually inclined, we can take the latter path and think without ever acting. We will become an arch theoretician, the kind of person who knows what they should do to make themselves happier, but never gets up and does it. We will recognize that we should go to bed, but we will torment ourselves with sleep deprivation.
Yeah, everyone's like
that. It will cheer
at
up
least
our
me.
mood to go for a walk, so we will
Last night I stayed up way later
and we
than I
shall
should
brew in our own
on my phone.
sadness instead. We will acknowledge that our relationship is making us unhappy, but we will stick around anyway, too passive to act out what we know is best for us. We will become more book than man and spit out 1,000 philosophies without ever leaving our armchair. Perhaps this is even more unpleasant than the person who acts without thinking. Since the idle thinker is someone who knows what they must do but never musters up the strength to do it, they will end each day admonishing themselves for their errors, only to fall into the exact same trap the minute they wake up. For me, this embodies my own flaws perfectly, and I'm sure it will for some of you watching as well. The ultimate thing we want to avoid is considered action. If we act, we want it to be without a thought, and if we think, we want to keep that as far away from our behavior as possible. Often, deliberated action is the first step to slowly making our lives better, so we cannot allow this insidious hope to infect our minds. Act only on impulse and then sit around considering your mistakes afterwards, with the express knowledge that you will never learn from them. That is the true path to despair, and it has been well trod. But once we have made sure that we never think before we act and we never act on our thoughts, where do we go to intensify our pain? Well, this is where we learn to embrace our worst instincts, each one a nail in the coffin of our joy. 3. Vices galore. The Stoics used to spend an awful lot of time cultivating their 4 virtues: courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice.
Yeah, we just learned about
Someone like Marcus Aurelius was said to have organized much of his life around these principles, and Cicero reported that they were a cornerstone of the Stoic way of life. So, if we are to be the anti-Stoic, we need to devalue these as much as humanly possible. Let's take the first one, courage. Well, this seems easy enough. We should just become cowardly. This is the natural state of a human being when they're scared anyway. We encounter things that terrify us, and we run away. A Stoic would ask us to hold our ground in the face of adversity, to stick up for ourselves and our values, but we should not listen to them. We need to immediately give in. If something is difficult or scary, if it involves putting our neck out for what we believe in or to protect our loved ones, we must instead sprint in the opposite direction. This will guarantee we'll live the rest of our lives without an ounce of self-respect, because we refuse to stand up for what really matters to us. Next is wisdom. The Stoics divided wisdom into a number of different subcategories, but they all had one thing in common: learning from those who know more than us. So we must reject this idea wholeheartedly. If someone is more informed than you about something, then
Just don't
pretend they
listen to
aren't.
'em.
Never
Okay.
own up to your mistakes or acknowledge that you might
Okay.
have more to learn about a topic. If you are
Okay.
lucky enough to have knowledgeable and experienced people amongst your friends and family, distance yourself from them immediately. Don't bother
Yeah.
with the so-called wisest people in history. After all, our situations are too unique for someone else to possibly have any insight into them. We must reject any attempts
I've
to
definitely
learn
thought
from
that
those
thought
who have been
before.
in our shoes. We must
This
instead
is
decry
so
them as
unique, yeah.
arrogant or stupid, or both, for not recognizing our special brilliance. Many of us
Yeah.
have a natural inclination towards intellectual overconfidence anyway. This will just allow us to indulge in it. Next, on to temperance. The Stoics broadly thought of temperance as the ability to control our desires. So they would advise us not to let our happiness depend on excess, but instead to remind ourselves how little we need to truly be fulfilled. If we have
Yeah.
some food to stave off hunger, some water to stave off thirst, and a roof over our heads, we should broadly consider ourselves lucky. Beyond this,
Yeah.
they would want us to keep our material needs limited. We could work to accumulate more worldly goods. In fact, many Stoics did this, but we should remind
this is
ourselves
most
that we can
people.
be content without them. So, to
Yeah.
reject this advice, we simply need to spin our own hedonic treadmill until it's almost off its hinges.
Oh,
We should
sorry, I'm in
imagine
the
that
way.
contentment
Anyways.
is on the other side
Yeah.
of wealth
This is most
or
people.
achievement
He's
or
describing. I
envied
feel like he's
sex. We
describing
should
most
let
people
desire rule
in the
our
West.
lives and watch as its gaping maw consumes everything in its path, all while
Yeah.
its unconquerable stomach growls for more.
Exactly.
Finally, we
The only
have
thing
justice.
that will
The
fulfill you
Stoic
is Jesus
concept of
Christ, by the
justice
way.
is quite complicated, but it can
That's gonna be an
broadly be
unpopular
boiled
opinion
down
in
to treating
philosophy.
people honestly and considering how
This is
you would
good.
like to be treated in their place. Of course, the opposite of this
That's the
is
golden
just
rule.
avaricious self-interest. We all know people who are willing to screw over others to get ahead. We just need to
Yeah.
follow their example. If you want something from someone, just lie or bully them until they give it to you. If you can't get what you want by being straightforward, then manipulate those around you until they feel emotionally compelled to give in to your heartless demands.
Yeah.
Watch the hate form on people's faces as they realize you've played them, and shoot them a smug smile, just to hammer home the message that they've been duped. Tell yourself this is all a hallmark of your supreme intelligence and superiority, that in fact those people deserve to get tricked. Then sit back and observe how people leave you, how they besmirch your name until no one will even talk to you anymore, how the bonds
really
of
don't like
love
people like
between your
this.
partner, your
Yeah.
friends, and your family are permanently shattered. And how
Yeah.
you've been left alone, surrounded by the memories of those who once
you're
gave
alone.
you their
Yeah.
trust. I can't imagine a more efficient way to destroy everything that makes our lives worth living. But the fun is not over yet. Now that we've ruined our lives, we need to make sure that they
still
stay
not.
that way. And this
Yeah.
is where our next step comes into play. 4.
Redemption is very
Attach
often
to
possible.
everything. My childhood dog is named Rosie, and
Hashtag.
she's lovely and adorable and the best thing you'll ever meet. But her biggest distress in life is when
Well,
my
my
mum
dog's
leaves to go to
probably
the
better.
shops. She will cry by the door waiting for her return. I think she's under the impression that my mother will never come back, and it sends her into a panicking spiral. She is a Cocker Spaniel, so she can't reason out that normally my mum is only gone for 10 to 15 minutes. All she feels is a threat to the attachment she has to my mother. And so she will stress until her triumphant return. The Stoics would probably admonish my dog. They would tell her to recognize that my mum is outside of her control, and little Rosie would do better to appreciate her in presence, but not get so attached that she mourns her absence. They would remind her of all the children of Marcus Aurelius who died when they were very young, and
this
how
is
he
the other
coped with the
Buddhist
loss by
stuff. It's
reminding
like
himself that these
detachment.
infants were never his to hold on to. It was
I'm not a
not
huge
his right
believer
to snatch
in
them from the jaws of death and treat them as if they were gods. It was this.
Detachment has its place. I think there can be good things. That I think that people can easily become too attached to materialistic things, but I don't think simply detachment from everything is great. But Jesus also talked about this. Jesus said, and this is used against Christians all the time in debates. Yeah, Jesus said, if you want to love me, you need to hate your own family. Right? And a lot of people are like, whoa. But what he's really saying is, if you look at the context and everything, what he's really saying is put him first, right? Is to love him more than you love your own family and the people around you, right? And your own children and your own parents and your own siblings. Like, and so there is an element of detachment in Christianity as well. It's just you attach yourself more to God because you can't lose him, right? Let's keep going.
That allowed him to let go and retrieve again some meaning for his life. Of course, my dog can't do this. It can't have these conceptually complex thoughts, but we can, which is why it is imperative that we do the exact opposite. We should behave like my dog with everything and get attached to as much as humanly possible. Whenever we gain a friend or a lover or even a mere material possession, we should immediately think that we cannot live without them and place them at the foundation of our happiness. We should catastrophize about what would happen if we no longer had them. If our partner
We
left
do
us,
this
we
though.
would surely never
People
find
think
it.
that this is absurd. People are going to think that this is absurd but we do this though. Think about the most valuable thing you have. Would you be okay if you lost it? It could be the most monetarily valuable thing you have, or it could be the thing that's most valuable to you. Maybe it's something sentimental. Right? Would you be okay? Do you put some emotional stock in a physical object? And at the end of the day, it's never going to be anything more than a physical object. Food for thought.
And if our friends moved away, we would lose all possible connections with other people. Above all, we must think that in order to be happy, everything must remain as it is now, forever. Since change is perhaps the only inevitability in the world, this will ensure that we are constantly disappointed and panicking. At any given moment, it will feel like our life is collapsing around us, because from our perspective, it is. Everything we value will be continuously running away from us, and this will tear us apart inside. And there is no reason why we should limit our attachments to what is actually the case. We can become attached to possibilities too. We can envision one sole direction for our life to take. And if it looks unlikely to materialize, we can immediately conclude that existence is no longer worth it. We must never accept that things can go wrong, and instead we should believe that life really ought to be easy. That way,
it's more of a Stoic belief to think. Hold on, I haven't been using this face cam. It's more of a Stoic belief to think that sorry, my stomach's growling. It's more of a Stoic belief to think hold on, what was he talking? I'm drawing a blank, guys. I really need to eat. Hold on, this is embarrassing. Hold on, what was he talking about?
Direction for our life to take. And if it looks unlikely to materialize, we can immediately conclude that existence is no longer worth it. We must never accept that things can go wrong, and instead we should believe.
So I think it's more of a Stoic belief that things neither go right or wrong, and things just go the way that they go. And it's our perception of them that makes them either right or wrong. But I see what he's saying. When things don't go the way that we expect them to go, or the way that we'd like them to go, we put too much stock in that. That's true. All right, let's get back to
that life really ought to be easy. That way, when we encounter a challenge, we won't see it as something to rise to, but rather a divine injustice that can never be overcome. If we keep this up, then we won't have much to do at all, apart from complain that life is unfair. We should imagine we have some cosmic deal with the universe, that it owes us many, many things. We can indulge ourselves in thinking that we are a misunderstood genius or have a hidden talent that the world just doesn't appreciate. After some dedicated practice, we would begin to think that we are simultaneously the greatest and most victimized person in the world, and that no one could truly understand our suffering. At this point, we will perceive ourselves as metaphysically screwed. Another great thing about all these attachments is they'll pull us in so many different directions we won't know what to do. We will simultaneously be obsessed with becoming wealthy and maintaining our lifestyle, and crave the attention of our preferred sex. Simultaneously be attached to the image of ourselves as a great thinker and a great artist and a great sportsman. In all likelihood, all of these competing urges will amount to us doing
I want to be able to speak like this
one day.
We
will be paralyzed by indecision, and that will be the headsman's axe. It will put us in such a state state of bewilderment that we'll lose sight of what we even want out of life. We'll be obsessed with getting everything, and in the end, we'll end up with nothing. In Kierkegaard's terminology, we will become so captured by the notion of possibility that we will forget actuality entirely. And it goes without saying that the blame for this worldview will always lay at someone else's feet. But, my dear sufferer, we are not done yet. There are still small glimmers of hope for us. So it is vital that once we're in the pit of despair, we close the door. Luckily, this is our final point. 5. Repression and indulgence. Despite what you may have been told, the Stoics were not great fans of emotional repression. Sure, they thought that we should be resilient, and they modeled that in their lives, but they had a very particular picture as to how this was achieved. In their view, every time a person becomes upset or enraged, we have a choice. We can fully indulge the emotion and give in to whatever behaviors it wants us to perform. We could ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, or we can examine the feeling to see why it has arisen and how to move forward. They held that in between something happening out in the world and our emotional reactions, we can intervene using our rational judgment. We need to understand our feelings before we can alleviate our pain. If we don't do this, then either the emotion will consume us or we will try and bury it deep, hoping that it never re-emerges. Both routes leave only misery in their wake. First, we could indulge our feelings, essentially surrendering our mind to the sway of our emotions. So when we are upset, we let that color our entire view of the world. We let it tell us there are no positives in life, and we allow its grey filter to rob reality of any vibrance or vitality. Of course, we can do this with any of our passions. We can let temporary moments of joy spill into the fantasy that we'll never be unhappy again, heightening our disappointment when the troubles of life inevitably reassert themselves. We can ensure that one bad day makes us angry for weeks and that we never forgive anyone that's wronged us. This is, in my opinion, probably the easiest route to despair, and we all know people at various stages along this path. The flip side of this is just to completely ignore our emotions or treat them as something deeply shameful.
All right, but hold on though. If you don't show any attention to your, because what most people say is like, hold on, let me get back to the space cam. I have not been using it enough. What people say about, you shouldn't suppress your emotions because it I'm drawing a blank here. Yeah, because eventually it's like build up and then you explode, right? But if you actually like go your entire life without showing any of your emotions, like bottling them up, is it a bad thing? I'm not saying I recommend it because we're all humans and eventually, we are going to burst. It's going to happen, but like let's say there's a perfect example in this hypothetical where you bottle it up for your entire life. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. That's something that I don't know, and it would take a lot of contemplation with some food in my stomach to figure it out. So yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Rather than view ourselves as a creature with both emotional and rational components, we should deny that we can feel anything at all. In the UK, we're very good at this. We call it British repression. In this state, we would never bother to deal with our sadness or anger or fear. Instead, we would let it build up.
Asians do this a lot.
We won't be able to understand it or address it because we will never even acknowledge its existence. We can keep up this approach for many years, letting ourselves grow number and number until one day we snap. Our mind breaks in two, and decades of
he's saying that we snap
like shotgun blasts.
But if you don't snap,
we will become soulless husks of our former selves, without the emotional skills needed to put ourselves back together again. And the great thing
he's saying
about
like
both
we'll
of these
become devoid of all
approaches is that they
emotion.
prevent
That would
us
be pretty
from
bad
knowing
too,
the cause of our misery, and so also stop us from doing anything about it. In the first case, we just resign ourselves to our emotions, treating them like eldritch beasts that bat our poor minds back and forth for fun. In the second case, we pretend that our emotions...
that imagery though. He could have just said, yo, no glaze. This guy's got a really good way of projecting his thoughts. He just said our emotions could be like two things batting our mind around or something. Why didn't he could have just said that our emotions control? Yo, I'm gonna go back and listen to that, even though I'm starving.
and so also stop us from doing anything about it. In the first case, we just resign ourselves to our emotions, treating them
Listen
like
to this.
eldritch beasts that bat our poor minds
Eldritch
back and
beasts
forth
that
for fun. In the
bat our
second
poor
case, we
minds back and
pretend
forth.
that our emotions don't exist at all, in
Who
the hope
talks like
that this will
no,
insulate
like
us
yo, that's
from
like
their
majestic
effects.
though.
But then our negative feelings will become termites, slowly nibbling away at the supports of our psyche until the whole structure collapses in a single second. Under no circumstances should we ask ourselves honestly why we feel a certain way. We should never inquire into the causes of our emotions, and we certainly should not calmly and patiently analyze how something
do
has
you
made
think
us
this
upset.
guy, yo, I know this guy pulls though. Like, the way he speaks though, he's so intelligent. He's so intelligent, dude. That's crazy. No glaze. No glaze. That's, yeah, I want to be able to communicate my thoughts like this one day. I'm not there yet, but I want to be able, I want to be this good at speaking.
Once we understand our feelings,
There's
we
layers.
might even
There's levels. There's levels to this, because he's not just using, like, there's levels to this, genuinely. The first level, hold on, back to face cam. Here's everything. The glaze is crazy. Okay. Here's everything that I know about orating. Like, there's levels to it, genuinely. There's level one is just stop stuttering and stop saying and ah. I'm not even there yet. Okay, that's level one. Level two is like using decent vocabulary. You know, words that everyone, like, using words that everyone understand, but they just don't think to use. Right? That's level two. Everyone can do that with enough self-reflection and enough, like, work. Okay. Then there's level three, which is using vocabulary that most people don't know. Right? That is, most people don't get there. Right? Most intelligent people don't get there. Okay. And then the fourth level, the final level, is using, like, imagery and going out of your way to, like, paint a picture about something so that it hits harder, so that it hits harder when people hear it, right? So that people can understand it more and people relate to it more, right? Yeah, that's those are the four levels of orating. This guy seems to be extremely good. He probably wrote this down. If he's doing this without a script, dude, like, he probably has bullet points. That's what I'm imagining. I doubt that he's the way he's talking. I doubt that he's reading a script, but he probably has bullet points. And he's probably pausing a lot. Like, where he shows pictures, he probably pauses in between each, like, he puts a picture in between every pause so it doesn't look out of place. But hey, it's still really good. It's still really good. Writing is like this too, but obviously it's easier because writing doesn't happen at once. Like, when you're speaking, you can't go back and change it, right? When writing, you can. So yeah, let's keep going.
Be able to
No
change
glaze.
them, either by attempting to change our physical circumstances or by altering our attitude to reality. That is, either by changing the world or our judgment of it. Above all, we should reject the notion that we could slowly master our feelings by knowing ourselves, because this could be the first second of a more fulfilling life. And we certainly wouldn't want that, would we? If you want more of these anti-guides, then check out this video where I explore one of Nietzsche's cautionary tales.
Nietzsche.
And stick around
Yeah,
for
we're definitely
more
gonna
on
watch that
thinking
eventually.
to improve your life.
Yeah, fantastic channel, unsolicited advice. He's almost at 1,000,000 subs. Let's get into 1,000,000 subs. Obviously, I'm probably not helping him out too much with that because there's no one in my chat. But you know, yeah, W channel, W video. Next episode in philosophy. Oh shoot, sorry. Yeah, next episode in philosophy is going to be Stoicism continued, where I had two more videos. One from Joe Bart, very popular guy, very popular streamer who has a philosophy channel. He's got a philosophy degree actually, and then another video from unsolicited advice about Stoicism and about how influencers have hijacked Stoicism. I don't know when I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to do another Avatar episode before then. But yeah, I'm going to go eat now. What about me, Iman? Yes, shout out Llama Hoogly Bro, Llama Villager is in the chat. I really appreciate that. Go sub to unsolicited advice and Llama Villager. And sub to me, obviously. Uh, yeah, I'm about to go eat. Hope you guys all have a great day. Whoever's watching, if anyone's watching. Yeah, have a blessed one.